All right, what's up? This is Zexa here at the DMVDrakes YouTube channel. You know, we already got the undisputed 2-0 King Arcane here with his BT-10 Blue Flare Store Championship win. He's got his invite. He's ready to go. He's going to start talking about his deck list. I got him right here. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yep. So hey YouTube, ArcaneKaze here, just like our captain said, and this is my blue flare list that went undefeated at Chesapeake Sports Cards. So getting right into it, just like the standard blue flare egg list, we got four Ubamons. I do like the Beatomon at one. However, the consistency that Upamon gives just from being able to swing out with the rookie, and if your opponent just dropped any Digimon turn one, you get a free draw off of it. And with Beatomon, it's very easy to play around because a lot of people who play around Blue Flare will just try to control just one Digimon anyways. So we're just going for Upas for now, keeping it simple. And then we have for Gaussmon. So Gaussmon is definitely super important for this deck because it's just a 1k rookie that when it dies, all you get to play a free Blue Flare level 4 Digimon suspended. And so normally you could just swing in security and it will reliably die. And then any on-play effects that you need from any level 4s in your hand, you'll be able to trigger. And so that also works well with Uba by being able to draw you a card at the same time. Now, continuing with the rookies, we also have three Jellymon. Now, I know a lot of Blue Flare lists, we're all trying to figure out the rookie line for this deck. A lot of people use just nothing but Floodgates. However, I really like Jellymon in this list because, for starters, its main ability is once per turn, whenever you play a Tamer, you get to draw a card. And so more often than not, when you play Blazing Memory Boost and you search the top 6 cards of your deck and you play a Kiriha for free, you not only get the 2 Blue Flare cards and a Memory Tamer, but you also get to draw after that. So the card advantage just keeps going on that note. However, the main kicker of Jellymon is the Inheritable. So in this deck, you'll see we'll be running a lot of level 4s that can go over Jellymon. And for the Inheritable, your turn once per turn, whenever an effect adds a card to your hand, you get to bounce one of your opponent's level 3s back to their hand. And so whenever your opponent wants to drop a Floodgate like a Chikurimon or a Psychmon or a Solarmon, more often than not, you could just have a level 4 over Jellymon, and thanks to the Upamon egg, you can just swing, draw a card, and then bounce that Floodgate right back to their hand. And then afterwards, whether it lives or dies, you can easily start going into your level 5s and crossing into them after that. So Jellymon essentially is card draw and allows me to make space for the deck by not playing Forbidden Trident like most other Blue Flare lists do. And last but not least, we're just playing 3 Madoki Betamons as a Floodgate because, a lot of opponents still just run Memory Boost and we want to prevent that as much as possible. In addition, any other effects that will gain memory or give them advantage, Madoki Betamon just stops, especially against decks like Minerva Loop. And so not really much to explain there. It's pretty self-explanatory. And so going on to the level 4s that I mentioned earlier, we're starting out with 4 Mil Bergermon and 4 Greymon. These are going to be your main cross targets for Metal Greymon. When you cross them both underneath, he'll also gain Russian. We'll get into that later. But essentially, Mailbird, when you play it, even though it's 5, you get to play Kiriha Aonuma from your hand for free. And being able to just get a level 4 on board and a Memory Tamer for free, a Memory Tamer that also allows you to save Mel Bergermon underneath is just really good value. More often than not, the level 5, the 5 play cost doesn't really feel like it hurts me too much. And of course, if you already have Kiria in play, you can play it in order to get a Metal Greymon back to your hand if you need it in order to cross into it. And so then there's Greymon. When it comes to Greymon on play, you get to search the top 4 cards of your deck, and you get 2 Blue Flare cards afterwards. And so that can also, make sure you get into all of your pieces, so that way you're not lacking on any of them. And just like with Mel Bergermon, if you have a Kiria in play, you get to get a Metal Greymon back to your hand. And now the inheritables for both of these cards, Mel Bertramon, both of them have to do with if your opponent controls two or more Digimon, the effects happen. So Mel Bertramon, whenever you attack, if they have two or more Digimon, you get to stun one of your opponent's Digimon. And for Greymon, same requirements for your opponent controlling two or more, except the Digimon gets to unsuspend. And so for Metal Greymon, you get to just swing and unsuspend if they have two or more things out, and be able to stun a blocker if you need to. However, in addition, since Greymon and Male Bertramon are the requirements for Metal Gray, we're also playing two of the red security inheritable Greymons, because more often than not, people will be able to play around not having two or more things in play. So whenever that happens, we could just cross into Greymon and be able to get two checks instead. And so it also raises the consistency for finding all of your pieces, because when you're lacking on four Greymons that you're running in your deck, at least you have two more that you could rely on drawing into. And then for our other Blue Flare champion, we have Decker. This champion goes under Decker Greymon, and on play you get to draw a card no matter what. But then afterwards, you also draw a card for every Digimon your opponent controls. So similar to Male Bertramon, turn one, usually the play of just dropping a Decadramon doesn't usually feel bad if you're going second, and your opponent already has a Digimon in play. Especially if you're afraid of whiffing any non-blue flare pieces that you might need, and you just want the strict card draw. In addition, the inheritable is just very generic. If your opponent controls two or more Digimon, you get extra DP. And so that does come into play sometimes, but Decker Dramon's main function works with Decker Greymon, and we'll get into that once we get to the fives. But starting to round out the level fours, we have three Leomons and two Kumamons. Leomon is pretty much the hero of this deck, if I'm being honest, because whenever I go against Cross Hearts or anything, people tend to underestimate blockers in this meta when it comes to Cross Hearts, especially because whenever a game is about to, whenever you have no security left and they're about to go for game, you just have a Leomon down there, and it's just a blocker that'll get you memory and draw you a card on deletion. In addition to the Jellymon point that I made earlier, the moment you have a scenario where Leomon is over top of a Jellymon, and any effect adds a card to your hand, so this could be a draw for Upa, or maybe a Blazing Memory boost put a card into your hand, not only do you get to bounce a rookie to your opponent's hand, but you actually don't mind swinging with Leomon either. It's versatile as a blocker and as an attacker, because, worst case scenario, it dies and you gain more memory and you draw a card. So Leomon is definitely, in my opinion, a very good pick for this deck. Even though it's not Blue Flare, it handles quite a lot of matchups, especially against decks like Dark Knightmon, where if you swing and you can't stun, and they just have two or three things out, and you know that they can block and they'll die and keep popping out blockers, Leomon can still swing and draw you into the piece you might need to close out games and everything, and they can't die off of it. And yeah, Leomon overall, pretty awesome champion. And then two Kumons just to be able to go for game over any of our tamers. And it also is able to trash the source for Metal Greymon that we're about to get into now. So, in terms of the later end of this deck, we're just going to go over the level 5s as well as the tamers and options. And this is where things start to become a lot more like, you start to see the reason why people really want to play this deck, essentially. So, starting out, we have 4 Metal Greymons. So, it's 7 cost in AKDP, but it has the cross requirements from Greymon and Mel Bertramon. So, if you have both of them, you'll be able to play it for 3. And on play, not only does it gain Rush, but so long as you are Digi-crossing it, you get to stun up to 3 of your opponent's Digimon that have a number of Digivolution sources that are equal to or less than it. So if your opponent has 2 or 3 things that have 2 sources underneath it, all of them are getting stunned, and you get to swing afterwards. And if there's another Digimon in play that has a lot of sources, you get to stun it off of Mel Bertramon so long as they have 2 or more Digimon anyways. And then normally, what would go over Metal Greymon is Decker Greymon. Now, normally, I do advocate for only three Decker Greymons in this deck. However, I'm running four just for the consistency of seeing them often because a lot of single stack decks you won't be able to reliably stun unless you use Decker Greymon's effect. Because either on play or when digivolving, you get to put any other blue flare card underneath it, whether you're digicrossing it or not, and then so long as it has Decker Dramon in the sources, you get to stun anything. And so you'll notice that while its level 4 requirement is 4 to Digivolve, it can also slide Digivolve over any blue Digimon for 2. And so this is very memory efficient in order to get more reliable stuns. And if you have 5 memory and you cross into Metal Gray and then go into Decker on top of that, you get a 10k Digimon with Rush, and it can still keep stunning things. And you can also do some pretty cool tricks like slide it over itself to get other blue flare cards such as Greymon or Male Birchmon underneath if you want to keep unsuspending it or stunning other things. And things can get pretty crazy from there. And then we have our Tamers. So for Kiria, I definitely think that's just non-negotiable in this deck as of right now. He's a memory setter, and in addition, during your turn, you can suspend him to Digicross any Digimon under him for the requirements. This is why earlier, when it comes to level 4s, you don't really mind them dying because you can just save them under Kiria for later. In addition, with Kumamon, if you're ever in a scenario where you have like 3 save sources underneath, you could just Digivolve over Kumamon, and if you have the memory, Digivolve into Metal Gray or Decker Gray, and you still have all those sources. They're very niche scenarios, but they definitely matter nonetheless, more often than you would think. And then I'm playing Two Sword Joe. This is not only for trash consistency, but also just for gaining more memory at the beginning of your turn. Uh, I see a lot of lists playing 3, but I'm playing 2 just so I have room for other removal options as well as Ice Wall and some of the Leomons. And yeah, there's not really a lot to say there. It just makes things more consistent for Metal Gray stun, as well as stripping sources in general. And then I have 3 Blazing Memory Boosts. This was the memory boost that I was talking about earlier that can search 6 cards, and then you put 2 Blue Flare cards into your hand and play a Kiria Aonuma for free. Now, there is an interesting ruling for this. Let's say if there's a scenario where you only reveal Kiria and Metal Greymon, you actually can't play the Kiria for free. You have to take both to your hand. You can only ever play the Kiria for free if you have 2 other Blue Flare cards in your hand first. And in addition, Kiria has Blue Flare in its traits, and Blazing Memory Boost does as well. So in addition to the Digimon, you could also put those in your hand too if you still need them. And rounding off the deck with the other options, we're playing 2 Kakaitis Breath. Originally, I was testing Rattlestar in this position because it's a really fun card and it can bottom deck things if your opponent controls 3 or more Digimon. However, Kakaitis Breath is just more consistent in terms of just being able to bounce anything. And out of security, it's pretty much one of your only few answers against OTK decks such as Grandis, because you can't really interact with that deck, and the moment they hit a Kakaitis Breath in security, they're checks, and you could keep playing the game. And then the 2 1-ups of the deck, we have an Ice Wall. This is pretty self-explanatory. It's the card that was restricted to 1, and a Death Exmon. Now, I know Death X is not an option. However, I'm definitely counting it as one because that's pretty much its function in the deck. It's not bounce, it's just strict removal, and of course, against decks like Jessmon or Bloomlord or anything that wants to swarm the board, if you can't stun them, then you could just kill them with Death X. I guess in terms of matchups and everything, this deck doesn't really feel like it has any strict losing matchups. Black Wargrey could definitely do very well against it if you don't control 2 Kirias. Otherwise, so long as you have your Decker Greymons, you can easily stun them so they can't block. And winning matchups definitely include anything that swarms the board, such as Jessmon and Bloomlord, like I mentioned before. And overall, that is the deck list.
So I just have a few questions for you. This deck is pretty tight. We were labbing this for a long time, and and I think it really paid off. We've gone through so many iterations of this deck. I just wanted to know, how were your matchups during the store championships? I know you played Crossheart.
Yep.
Jess was another one. Did you have
Mhm.
any mirror matches? Can you explain a little bit of that?
So no mirror matches, surprisingly. I think we're probably going to see a lot more mirror matches once Cross Four gets restricted. But in terms of matchups, I went against Mastamon, Crosshearts, Wargrey X, and Jessmon. When it comes to Mastamon, funny enough, even though they play Psychmon and Gazi, a lot of the times I didn't really feel threatened by it because turn one they have to play Gatomon in order to search their sources, and I can easily stun that back with playing a Metal Gray, and the only real option you're worried about is Chaos Degrade because for a lot of purple decks, whenever they want to delete you, if you have a Decker Greymon over top of anything, it just armor purges and you can just keep going. And the fact that you could stack him on top of himself, that's two layers of deletion that you have to go through. So I would definitely say watch out for Chaos Degrade for that matchup. In terms of Crosshearts, this is like one of the main reasons why I played the Leomon. Crosshearts does not like they do not like blockers. Even if they Crimson Blaze or Sunrise Buster it, they're giving you way more memory and card draw off of Leomon that they would want to. And even if they drop a Death X, so long as if you're in a scenario where Leomon doesn't have a source under it, like in my Storm Championship game against Crosshearts, I actually had to just drop a Leomon and put him to 6 while I had a Metal Greymon and a Decker Greymon out. And in that scenario, I also had two Tamers. So he would have been able to play Death Exmon for 5, but if he were to do that, he would easily just pass the turn to me because Leomon would die. I would push out with my Rookie and Racing, and due to the board state, I had enough checks in order to finish game. So it really puts people in a tight spot, especially Crosshearts. And the red Greymon, honestly, it was awesome against Crosshearts and Wargrey X. Wargrey X being my third matchup and being just a deck that can OTK you out of nowhere in general, being able to start winning the race early against them with Greymon was very, very helpful. And then last but not least, there was Jess. Jessmon, I think, is definitely a winning matchup for this deck. I mean, they end up putting out a whole bunch of Sistermons, and Metal Greymon looks at that and it's just like, oh, cool, free stun food, and then and then you could just do everything your deck wants to do. The only thing about Jess is that if they play their blockers correctly and time them well, you have to be careful of what you stun or what you bounce and things of that nature. So yeah, pretty it was pretty fun matches overall, and yeah, that's how my matchups for Store Championship went.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you, Arcane, for explaining your deck list. Congratulations on your win.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, man, every deck's for themselves.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, that was the DMVDrakes win at Chesapeake Sports Cards.
Thank you guys so much. Be sure to like and subscribe. We have more content on the way. Peace out.